Hi, I'm Pakolokoko, the founder and president of the Runway. Welcome to the Runway Replays, where we bring you gems in the form of recordings from our past online events. All our activities and programs are specially designed to set you up to soar to become the best version of you. I hope that you enjoy the following recording and that you continue to engage with us.
Kitso, we can focus on you now. So you obviously work in the UK, studied in the UK and everything like that. Why did you choose to stay in the UK instead of, reintegrating back to Botswana after graduating?
I think it had more to do with doing my placement in Botswana. Mm-hmm. So initially when I started uni, the intention is always to go back to Botswana. So something happened and I had to do my placement in Botswana. I had really good experience in Botswana, but one thing that I found during my placement is Botswana, when it comes to technology, we are at a very primitive stage. This was back in 2013. We have come a long way now. We're in a much better position now. So back in 2013, we are still miles behind. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to gain as much experience and knowledge by working in Botswana as opposed to working in the UK. Right. The other thing that I found is coming in as a fresh graduate in any organization, you come at the lowest level. So it's very difficult for you to actually impact any change or actually challenge the leaderships in terms of advancements or anything that you want to do. So I thought if I gain my experience in the UK, learn more in the UK, I can later come back to Botswana and come in a much stronger position to effect the change that I want to see in Botswana technology. And quite frankly, it seems to be working quite well. So as I mentioned, I'm currently in Botswana right now. I've been having conversations with a few CEOs of the technology companies here, and we are at very advanced stages that I might be coming in as more of a partner in one of these organizations, depending on the negotiations that are going to ensue in the next few days or weeks. So had I stayed in Botswana, I don't think I'll be in a similar position as I am now. And looking at the people who started as analysts back in 2013, they're still stuck. And Botswana progression is very slow, especially when it comes to technology. I'm not sure in other areas. I know Paco mentioned that she had really good experience with Deloitte and all these things. But for me, the experience was good. Don't get me wrong. The experience was good. I was given a lot of responsibilities and everything. But I felt like I'm not going to be learning anything, given that what I was doing at that company were things that I learned when I was at UB, because I did 2 years BSc before coming to the UK. So I thought maybe I might be better suited to nurture my skills in the UK rather than Botswana.
Yeah, I found that very interesting, actually, the contrast between your placement experience and Paco's placement experience. She says that she had a better time in Botswana the UK, whereas you had a completely different experience, and that just goes to show like different industries, I guess, different advancements in different places. So that's very good. So you spoke a little bit about wanting to affect certain change in your industry. Can you speak a little bit about the changes that you'd like to see in the future in Botswana, I guess?
So I think it's more of how reluctant we are to using technology. You come to many government departments in Botswana, you hear things like system only and all these things. I'm sure that's something that most people have had. And you'd wonder, why is that the case? Why are we still using such primitive technologies to host our services and all these things? So the current proposals that we currently have, and we will be proposing to some of these organizations, is actually transforming most of Botswana's systems, getting them into the cloud, transforming how they deliver their projects, because currently in most places in Botswana, we are still delivering projects the old way, where we start by saying what we want, and then 2 years later, someone gives you a product that you need, right? So we are trying to introduce more of an iterative way of delivering projects, such that we build these systems incrementally and we help them realize value as we keep building them. It's a way you are given something 2 years down the line and find out that this is not something that you wanted. But instead, what we're doing within the first month or first 2 months, we'll start showing you value, and you are able to give us feedback real time, so that whatever we build for you, whatever we deliver for you at the end, it's actually what you want, and you've actually contributed a lot in terms of realizing that to completion.
Wow, that's actually really exciting for our country. I am extremely impressed and excited for that. We've got a question for you. Mmata wants to know, how much is enough experience, like, before going back to Botswana?
When I started working, I just told myself I need to get to manager level, senior manager level, or director level. I didn't put anything to it. And then earlier this year, I came to Botswana briefly for holiday. I was just here for holiday. And I met a few people, which is what presented some of these opportunities. We just started talking randomly. And I did get to realize that actually I do have enough experience. I don't need to wait anymore, because I just told myself, maybe let me spend a few more years here, 5 more years, so that I come with loads of experience. But I realized that actually I do have quite a lot to offer right now. I don't need to wait many years. So in terms of what enough experience is, I think depending on the industry that you are in, you just have to gauge it by the ear, to see where you are, where Botswana is, where you want to get into organizations that side. But definitely I knew that I didn't want to come to Botswana and come back and come in below manager level in any organization that I would be joining.
Right. Okay. And she has another question. What additional skill sets should one focus on whilst they're building the experience? Is there anything specific you think is important?
I think that differs depending on industry.
Mm-hmm.
So given that I'm in technology consulting, the skills that I've been nurturing is actually selling, actually sitting in front of people and selling stuff to them, because you need to get money out of people's pockets. So that's something that I've focused on during my career. Other skills like analytical skills, you always need them. You need to know how to negotiate if you're going to be in a position where you want something from someone. You need to actually learn how to manage people, which is something that I didn't think it was difficult, but I found it a bit difficult when I got to a position where I had to manage people. And it's something that is, I think it's invaluable to be able to manage people. Just every day, people come to you with different things. You have to measure that talent and all these things. So that's something that I've also found beneficial from my end. I hope that answers your question, but it differs depending on industry.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for that. Tumi, so you said earlier that you're a doctoral student. I don't know if I've said that right, but can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what that means, what that entails?
Yeah, sure. So I guess other people could call it a PhD student. I basically go about my life just doing my research, and yeah, my research is basically on breast cancer. I don't know what else you wanted to go into in that regard.
How's that experience being a PhD student for you, especially in the field that you're in? How's your experience as a PhD student in the field that you're in?
So, okay, so I guess I could kind of start with why I did it. Yes. So when I was an undergrad, I didn't do a placement here. And then I basically like spent my summers doing like summer internships kind of. So based off that, I kind of realized that I really enjoy actual research instead of like, I guess, learning about like the basics of like what actually happens. I actually like generating data. I like the idea of publishing. I don't necessarily like learning, if that makes sense. Yeah. So then that's when I decided that, okay, cool, I'll do a PhD. And yeah. So the different like studentships or internships I did kind of taught me like the different skills I'd probably need to like be able to secure the different PhDs you apply for. And I guess I also had a leg up to other people because I kind of got my offer based off my undergrad. So yeah.
So what are your future plans with like after your PhD? Do you intend on staying in the UK or relocating? What kind of work do you want to do? If that's something that
So I'm really interested in like the science communication aspect of things. I'm really interested in getting people to know more about like how research output kind of like applies to day-to-day life, especially in the cancer research area. So that's what I want to kind of go into. I really want to go into like policy making and like advocacy for people, especially like people of color or Black people especially. So that's what I want to do. I'm not really interested in becoming an academic. That's not really like my end goal. I guess it also then depends on where I do end up.
Yeah.
If I do end up obviously back in Botswana, I feel like going into academia is going to be like the next step for me because there's not really much one can do in the cancer research space in Botswana. But if I did stay in the UK, I'd probably definitely stay in the science communication aspect because that kind of ties in both the active research and the dispensing to the public policy advocacy vibe I like.
Yeah. So is the Black in Cancer organization that you spoke about, does that focus on, spreading the word about cancer research, especially in the Black community?
So basically, we do focus on that, but we also focus on getting more Black people into the cancer space.
Yeah.
For example, like I still am the only Black person I've always been the only Black person in the different spaces I've been throughout my career. And Black in Cancer just focuses on basically developing a pipeline for like younger people to know that, okay, these are the different things you can do in the cancer space, not only like cancer research, we also like do work on cancer awareness, especially in the United States of America and in the UK. We also want to like start getting more people out of Africa to join the organization and just teach the public about cancer, how to like avoid it, the different symptoms, and what career opportunities like open up for you if you do study anything in the biological sciences space, because it's not just about like genetics.
Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't really aware about what happens in, your field of work or your line of work, myself included. So it's very interesting. Well, I say myself included, which is weird because I'm a medical student, but I don't really know the
Literally.
I wouldn't know the nitty-gritties of like what you do and things like that. But yeah, that's very interesting. We have a question. How do you stay motivated doing your PhD if academia is not your end goal for your career?
So this is gonna sound very problematic. So I'm trying to like structure it very well. Like I feel like I personally feel I deeply feel like if you want to go into academia, you don't need a PhD.
Okay.
Simply because I feel like having a PhD doesn't do anything for your ability to teach. There's so many people with PhDs that literally suck at teaching. That's number one. Number two, the main thing that keeps me motivated is because my end goal is obviously to work in like policy and like science communication.
To me, when you were speaking about the PhD thing, I found it very interesting about what you said about PhD and, the need or the quality of education. And I wanted to just hear what Bame's opinion was on that before we moved on to the next panelist, if you have any thoughts on that.
My opinion on what she said about what?
About PhDs not really being a qualifier for education.
He's 2 months and already walking. We're missing the big moments.
Do you mean when I said I feel like having a PhD doesn't make you a great teacher?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it goes back to me answering the question of what qualifications are required in order for you to teach, specifically in Botswana. And I think you're absolutely right. Having a PhD does not make you a great teacher. I think I know specifically in LSE, when you do a PhD, there is a teaching element that you have to go through, and there is a research element that you have to go through. So I think when you get out of a program like that, then you have the best of both worlds. But I know as well that some PhDs are purely research. And when you get out of one like that, then if you don't have presentation skills or certain skills that make you a good teacher, then ultimately you won't be a good teacher just because you have a PhD. But this goes back to, I think a lot of people have spoken about Botswana and what is expected of you and how far behind we are. I think in our country, we benchmark a lot of things without necessarily understanding why they are done in other countries. Like I just said, in LSE, when you do a PhD, you do have to teach, and then you do research. In other universities, you don't. And I think when these qualifications are required from you in Botswana, they don't even check which school you went to, if you actually have teaching experience or you just have research experience. It's just a base minimum, especially I know specifically for BUST, you have to have a PhD in order to be able to teach there. But just because you have a PhD doesn't mean you have the necessary skills that you need to teach. So I think it's an added advantage because actually, I don't know if it is, because again, with a PhD, you concentrate on something very specific in the field. And then when you're going to lecture, I've changed. I think I've been in Botswana less than a year and I've taught over 8 different modules. And if having a PhD was a requirement for me to be doing that job, I would I'm interested in research areas, but none of them specifically have to do with anything that I'm teaching. And even then, it's going to be something very specific in a module that I'm teaching. It's going to be like literally 0.05% of what an entire module would be. So I've been very inclined to agree with Dumi, and I don't think it's as controversial as she thinks it is. I mean, if you really think about it, I don't think you need a PhD necessarily to be a lecturer.
All right, good, noted. Thank you very much. Tebogo, you said when you introduced yourself that you are quote unquote unemployable, which is very interesting. Is that why or what drove you to starting your own, I guess, business?
All right. I'd like to piggy ride on a lot of what other panelists have really shared, because when I was listening to everyone, a word that constantly came up was learning. So I've always been fascinated with learning. You know, when you grow up and you are excelling academically, you have friends and then you want to help them, you want them to improve as well, because otherwise you don't have playmates. So then in me extending and trying to teach others, I discovered something quite early on that, you know, I still use up to now. Like, the best way to learn is to teach others. For me, that has been like my secret. And the other way, the best way to grow also is to apply your lessons. So I got frustrated when I was in industry with how long it takes. Like, you go for training, people went for training every week, they came back, nothing improved in how they were working. And I was a junior engineer, and at some point I had an opportunity to jump into a project that had stalled for 2 years while I was at Mascom. And, you know, in getting involved in a project, we all know projects are short-lived. There's a lot that is going on that is outside the normal routine of operations. So I was the only person working on the project, and I was working with consultants from the contracting company, Huawei. And it was quite interesting. I was doing everything. So I never had time. I was always like trying to look for answers to stuff and all that. Self-application once again. So I would learn and then apply immediately. I'll tinker with things. And I think in hindsight, in just a year, I had picked experience that, you know, I don't think anyone can say that I've had, in that I worked across all elements of like a radio architecture network. You can think about 3G, somebody implementing everything about 3G all alone. But I was doing that on a radio architecture called WiMAX, which is competing with what we know as 4G. And that was back in 2013. But when the project ended and I delivered results, I had to come back to business as usual. And that was like one of the most disillusioning periods of my life, because here I had enjoyed like the thrill of not knowing and then going out to look for answers and then applying immediately. And, you know, I was asked to create my own job description because nobody knew what it took to do my work, which also meant nobody could really get a full appreciation of what I had, like the depth of like self-application I had to come from to really deliver. So I then left because I couldn't recreate the tension, and it's really tension between what had to be the right thing to be doing, what we wanted and where we were. And it's working with this tension that in many ways we all want to do, so to really learn well. So yeah, then when I left, it's the other side again. Everyone is talking about academia and all that. And when you have excelled earlier on, there's this expectation that, you talk to people, I still talk to people and they say, you really should think about doing a PhD. I'm like, for what? Why? So I realized early on that I've had 2 scholarships in that space, one in mathematical optimization operations research, one in computer science. But it always feels like I'll be doing that for other people and not myself, because I can learn on my own. If I have a problem that has my emotions going on that I care about, I know I'll find the answer. So I've realized that the creativity works in different ways, and academia is guilty in many ways of killing creativity. Because imagine this, we have all gone to school, but we have never been taught to learn. Yet learning is something it's a learnable skill. So I didn't get into academia for that, because when I also looked locally here, I've worked with UB, I've worked with students, I've done some work with BAC as well. When I look at researchers in those spaces, they're not effecting change in our community. And for me as an engineer, like it's why we do everything that we do. So we learn, pick a problem, test our solution, and then redo the whole thing again based on new knowledge, which is where I think someone was talking about human-centered design without necessarily calling it that. So, and it's this drive to pick a problem and solve it that turned me into an entrepreneur, of course, in the end. And in the journey of the organization itself really mirrors much of what has been my personal journey as well, because I don't think you can have success without knowing what your purpose is. You can't really, I don't understand, because the first thing when I hear people saying they're aiming for something, I want to ask them, what's your purpose? Like what? Because it's that thing that would constantly drive you forward, even when things are not, like, maybe they don't make sense. But because there's this thing that you really want to achieve, and you want to achieve it for a specific reason, not for the end in itself. And I love the fact that the previous panelist was just explaining why she was doing a PhD. It was not for the PhD. It was for what she was going to get out of that, because she wants to apply somewhere there. So I see more of what is success being around being more purpose driven in like how one lives. And for me, that's why I'm unemployable, because if if I can't see the purpose of anything that we are doing, I don't invest my life energy. I'd rather sit down and just breathe than do something I don't believe in.
That's very interesting. We've got a few questions that we'll ask you from the panelists, and Paco's applauding you. Mmata's asking how we find the balance, or how do we balance the need for competitiveness versus doing qualifications just for just? Like, what is the minimal qualification that you guys recommend for fresh graduates?
I have a thing again with academia, in that creativity is not an individual thing. You know, you create things with other people for different reasons. So there's always the most impactful form of creativity is in servitude of something larger than ourselves. And unfortunately, when you are in school, what happens is I get a star for having the highest marks. You know, we don't learn to do anything together. You know, we get praised on our ability to dominate others, if I could say.
Yeah.
And I find that to be a sad construct to create a learning environment for. That's why, in many ways, classrooms, they really kill learning, because to learn, I have to influence your thinking from how you think. Like, I need to understand how you see things such that I can explain the concepts in a way that you can relate with. And for me, this is just something that I learned over the years. You know, you can imagine out of 4 friends, same subject, same topic, they see it differently. And because I care about them, I always try different things. So over the years, I've seen this is repeatable. And it's one of my greatest challenges as well, because now our company, from its inception, is structured to be a learning organization. So my challenge is to create space where everyone who joins us comes in and are able to give their best, which means you commit to a learning plan and then you give your best. Where I can do something as the organizational lead, I try to do that. But the aim is in recognition that it's when everyone is giving their best that we can achieve things that are that are greater than ourselves. And the ability to learn to do things together, unfortunately, it's something that is completely stripped away from the education system. But organizations also suck at that because of hierarchy. Academia especially sucks. I would like to throw in something that may sound controversial, but one of the things that I didn't love with academia is the fact that it breeds this deep-rooted insecurity around intelligence. I think intelligence is more around learning than the content in your head. So I didn't fit in there, because I'll say these things to people who are more learned than me. But it's like, I don't want to be that. You know, I want to come into a session like this, listen to everyone, and then learn, because it's trying to relate and pick from other people's experiences that you can learn. And it's not something that has to be inside classroom necessarily, but that is where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. That's profound. I find that very amazing. I find your head brain work is very amazing. When did you realize your passion, is a question from Tumi, or your purpose rather?
I think because I've always, I grew up in old Naledi, so I've always seen vulnerability around me. But for me, because I really, my sister would come from school, play school on me. Even before I started, I was like 5. So I learned to read and do all stuff school related quite early. So I read books. They allowed me to travel. So I've always loved learning. And I think I betrayed it when I got big-headed because I started, everyone starts labeling you, oh yeah, this is this guy. And then you buy into that illusion that you are that guy. But then it sucks the joy out of the whole thing at the end of it in some cases. And, you come back home, the environment is different. People are not used to people who can just say, no, but if we do that, this can be the consequences. People are not used to being challenged. People are not used to being held accountable for their actions. So I think it was when I quit my job at Mascom, because I've only worked for one corporate, and I got disillusioned whether I should continue with seeking jobs or whether I should go into academia. But academia was more appealing then because I had offers already. But I didn't want that to be like the sole determiner of that. But my purpose over the years came now with the type of problems I wanted our company to solve. So I'm a dissonance with how over the years we have built industries that are posing threat to our environment, to our social structures, in breeding inequality, because we're just chasing economic growth in terms of metrics and we are leaving people behind. So I love to work on projects that have impact in terms of improving people's lives. So our company has pivoted to become that mission-driven company that offers organizations the ability to create opportunities for growth and thriving in the face of digital disruption. So instead of coming from the tech side, I'm purposing it around what is emerging. Most organizations here in Botswana need to step up in order for them to first survive in the digital economy and to create sustainable value in the digital economy as well. We don't talk enough about this, but it's when you look at how inefficient things have been over the years with minimal improvements that you realize things need to change. So our company helps organizations from any point or any maturity point in that digital transformation journey. We build applications, we do process innovation, optimize business processes. We also offer data analytics for those who want to derive actionable insights from data. But then you can't talk about data and not think about its secure management. So we do cybersecurity as well and all that. But all in all, it's to transform businesses, so we can't stay away from digital strategy as well. But because of my purpose as a person around having social transformation, seeing social transformation through my own actions, the company has a bias as well to build investable projects of our own. And one of my favorite one is where we digitize the delivery of social protection services here in Botswana. We were funded by a Botswana Innovation Fund for that specific project. So yeah, it's when you find your purpose, even the other things that you add on top now have a direction. Yeah. So for me, that has been like the most insightful thing I've seen, that even after 21 years, there's growth that you have to do, but that has to be deliberate and it has to be done with awareness of where you want to go as well.
I love that. Thank you very much. And how has the journey of like starting a business been, especially in Botswana, especially a business like your own, which is, I guess no one does what you do, or not a lot of people do what you do in the Botswana space. How has that been for you?
It's been a 5-year journey, if I could confess, or if not more. And it took COVID-19 really for people to start now experiencing some of the things that we had been talking about for some time now. With digital technology now allowing us to have these meetings, to work remotely, for business continuity and all that, organizations have no choice but to transform.
Right.
So it's been tough. At first, I looked for talent. So in looking for talent, I went into universities. To teach and then sharing with others. And that is what has really driven me over the years, because I'll have to learn the next thing to teach to guys as well. So it's been tough. There is also, unfortunately, there's a credibility issue that people tag us with, because nobody has seen these things work. So that is where now we're leveraging the strength of partnerships and on all that. But I'm actually quite strict, because here we have talented people, like even from within this panel, why is it difficult that, we can't create some clusters, innovative clusters amongst ourselves as people who have been exposed to better as well. So it's also a challenge that I'd like to pose to everyone, that in many ways we can't talk about stepping things to the next level when in our small interactions or clusters we're not reflecting the same values as well. And it perhaps it comes with me being purpose obsessed. So if I have to be part of something, I need to understand such things.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We've got a question from Paco. What do you think we can do as a society to get to a point of being more collaborative and institute a culture of learning even outside of classroom settings?
That's an interesting one, because whenever I describe our problems in Botswana, I say we tend to focus a lot on where they're manifesting, which means we are looking at the symptoms of something that we may not be having the right words to describe. I think we simply have a learning problem in this country. And it's coming off in so many levels. I mean, we can't explain why so many projects fail. Like over 10 years, projects have been failing, but we are not experts in project management. So we don't learn from things that are not going right, which also means we then are not aware of how we are contributing to the undesired outcomes, because it's only in being aware of that we can rechannel that creative energy towards what we desire. So there is also this blind, unconscious creation. We're more like more reactive in terms of the reality we want to create. So to come to effect change in such a system means, in many ways, to awaken people to their own creative potential. And that means we need to encourage these group reflections. It can be accountability buddies. You come here, you share your learning path, where you want to go. Someone holds you accountable on that. So it's learning to get to the next level that matters. And because it's a problem I found, we're bringing in a local chapter of Society of Organizational Learning. And most of the times when we try to solve problems, we tend to look at things from our own point of view. I belong to this camp, it says this, so this is the right camp. What we need to do is to recognize, we need to consider the relationships between the stakeholders, the different actors, which allows us to take more of a systematic or systems view of things. because it's in understanding how things work together that you can influence change at a more kind of systemic level. You can't change one part of a thing when everything else is broken and think things would improve. And unfortunately, we have been guilty of that. Our pursuits of improvements are being done with the same mindsets that created the problem as well. So we need to really overcome ourselves, in short.
Does that answer the question, Paco? Are you happy with that? Yeah. Thank you very much, Daboko. We've got quite a few questions for you in the comment section, but before we go on to that, you had a question before my internet was doing the most for Kitso, but I didn't get to read it, and he's mentioned that his laptop is about to die. So if you want to switch on your mic and maybe just ask him directly if you remember, so that he can answer that before he has to go.
Yeah, I was just asking how, his experience was looking for a job in the UK after his placement in Botswana, especially as a foreigner.
Thank you.
Yeah, looking for a job in the UK as a foreigner is a bit challenging because you need to find a company that will sponsor for a tier 2 visa. The good thing is, if you just Google tier 2 visa sponsors, you'll get a list of all the companies. It's a very long PDF of all the companies that sponsor for a tier 2 visa. So if you can try to apply for those companies instead of all the other companies, as those who just prioritize British and EU citizens rather than foreigners. And then the other thing that I found is try to do a placement. I think Leo spoke about this earlier. If you can do a placement, because it sort of guarantees you a job after university. I know someone who's a foreigner. He did his placement in a company that didn't traditionally sponsor for tier 2 visa, but because he did well in his placement, they applied to become a tier 2 visa sponsor, and they were able to sponsor him for his job. So he's been working in the UK for a few years now. And then the other thing, when looking for a job in the UK, there's a site called Glassdoor. If you can try to utilize that site, it helped me quite a lot while you're looking for a job in the UK. If you search for a company that you're applying to, it will give you tips on how the interviews go and all these things. And then I think the last thing is we found that we do the one size fits all CV. That rarely ever works. So if you can try to tailor your CV to each and every single position that you're applying for, and then some companies don't ask for a cover letter, do a cover letter for each application, because they use these softwares to sort of filter all the applications. So make sure that you have your CV and your cover letter tailored specifically for that job. And then in the job description, they'll list the competencies and the key skills that are required. Make sure that your CV includes those key skills that are required for the job, so that at least you're not filtered out by the softwares that they use. I hope that sort of answers that. Let me see, because I think I listed a few things that you have to do.
Thank you.
And then the last thing, and this is a mistake that people make, most graduate schemes open in October, between October and December. Fair enough, there are companies which recruit throughout the year, but if you are looking for a job, start looking at applying in October. If you're looking to start working the following year, August or September, start looking in October, apply for as many as possible, because in the new year, they're just doing assessments and all these things. There are a few companies which recruit all year round, but for most of them, the graduate schemes open between October and December. I know that our company opens in October, and by November, they usually close out all the applications for next year's intake. I hope that answers you.
Yeah, I think it does. Thank you very much. That was very helpful advice. Before you do run away, Mmata has asked, which CV support resource do you use?
For a CV, I just use the university career. So we had a career center at university, and also my personal tutor. So with most of these applications, so the general format and everything, the initial one, I consulted with them. But then with each job that I did, it was just just to edit that a bit to make sure that I tailor it for a specific job that I go for. And that did help. And also just I'll consult with a few people who are in industry, just give them your CV and see what they say about it.
Yeah.
People are usually willing to help.
Absolutely agree. Thank you very much, Kito. In case you leave us in the middle of the conversation, it's been a pleasure having you. You've been very helpful. I'm sure we've learned a lot. Emang, we haven't heard your voice today, so this next section is for you, if you're still here.
Just go back. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay.
So that's why my attention is a bit deferred.
No, that's absolutely fine. So you obviously completed your master's recently in the UK and have just recently gotten a job in Botswana. Can you tell us a bit about your process reintegrating back into the Botswana system and how that's been for yourself?
I didn't expect it to go how it went. Maybe let me just start by saying the plan was not to come back here. So I had no plan whatsoever of coming here. All my plans were like UK centric, but because of circumstances, visas and the like, I couldn't stay. Yeah. So I had no plan, but reintegration wasn't that bad because I was just away for a year. So I still had my contacts. I got back immediately and started talking to my contacts, trying to see what I can come up with for in the job market. So it didn't take really long for me to get a job. And the current one I have, I didn't apply for at all. It was just a reference to say, oh, there's this kind of person. They just got back from the UK. And yeah, by God's grace, I got it.
Yeah. Your connections were very helpful in that regard.
Yeah.
Okay. And how is that job? What exactly do you do in that job role?
Okay. So I'm the assistant financial administrator, basically kind of like Beza, what school. I have 2 seniors, and I work as in a team of 7. So I'm much on the payment side. What I do is process supplier payments. I deal a lot more with suppliers, but for the past week, because it was beginning of term, there's a huge influx of payments. We're dealing with school fees payments, so it's collections, allocating funds into student accounts. Yeah, I'm dealing with bank, recording cash books and the like. So it's been hectic for the past week, but I'm still looking forward to a different side of it as the year goes by.
Yeah. What was the reason that you wanted to stay in the UK over coming back or going
back? What's here, Botswana? What's here?
What do you mean?
There's not much to do, and opportunities are very limited. And I hate that. I'm sorry to say, but I hate the fact that Botswana, you're not recognized on merit. It's a thing of you need someone, or you need to carry a certain surname or whatever, a certain association for you to get a job in a good corporate company. So I wanted to be somewhere where I'll be seen as among a graduate from a certain university or a certain qualification and get a job based off that. So I really didn't want to be here, but it is what it is.
I really apologize.
No, it's cool. We'll be that.
Would the rest of you guys that are in Botswana right now, would you agree with Emang's statement about, basically everything he said really about Botswana employment and the job market in Botswana? Pakobame, Tebogo.
All right. Go on, Paco.
Okay. I would say to an extent I would agree with him, but also I would disagree with him. I think the country or the industry is starting to recognize talent a lot more than maybe we have heard or been used to hearing about it. If you are able to present yourself as somebody who would be skilled and useful within a particular role and or company, I think organizations are becoming more aware of that and are reaching out to you based on how you present yourself. These days, tools such as LinkedIn are becoming very, very powerful with regards to being headhunted, with regards to presenting yourself as a competent professional. If you have a good profile on LinkedIn, bet somebody will see it and you will get offers that you didn't even ask for. So yeah, we still hear of stories where, some people are preferred over others because of certain things. But I think also being able to put yourself out there as that skilled person with relevant experience who can be able to offer, good things to different organizations, I think that it would be beneficial and it can land you some pretty awesome opportunities.
Thank you for that. Tebogo, you also had something to say about that.
Yeah. So I think it depends on what one is aiming to achieve in the end. I mean, if Mmata wanted to work in a space, in a high performance environment, then unfortunately he can't get that here. There, I absolutely agree with him, and I'll understand why he finds it frustrating, especially if you want to create from your highest potential as well. But all these many problems as well, if you are a problem solver, they present opportunities to do things differently, to apply yourself. But it's only so because of where my North Star is facing, in that I believe that we have enough collectively to solve these problems. It's just that we haven't aligned on a common purpose. So everyone is trying to get things their own way, and it's never going to work because it would take people doing things differently for things to improve. And who's going to start it? We are also going to reinforce the same loop where we're going to see change. So I think there's a need to take that personal responsibility on the changes that we want to see as well.
Paco, did you have something to say? No. Okay.
He asked who started. I was saying me.
You were. Yeah. Yeah, I think with regard, just this is my personal opinion, I think as people were really, really different, and what Tebogo said about who's going to take that responsibility, there are people who are willing to make that sacrifice, and that's okay, and people who aren't, and that's absolutely okay. I think the problem is when now we want to judge other people for not, or vice versa, but whichever, I guess, journey you decide to go on is absolutely fine. Tumi, you wanted to answer a question that Mmata had asked earlier on. Are you? No.
I've low-key forgotten.
Okay, I can read the question maybe. I think it was the balancing the need for competitiveness versus doing qualifications just, if I'm not mistaken. Does it ring a bell at all?
Oh no, I think it was the qualifications one. I think NRA for all the courses, what qualifications people needed for jobs or something.
I remember. I said something like, obviously, competition and everything, balancing the need for standing out, being like, and having a higher likelihood of being called for an interview or something, versus doing qualification just because you're building a skill set or you absolutely enjoy that. What's the minimum level of higher education you guys or whoever that people recommend for one to be successful in any particular career? Is it a master's? Is it a PhD? Is it whatever?
So, okay, I was just going to answer it from the genetics side of it. So in general, like across the field, in order to be like a successful person in the genetic space, PhD is kind of like standard. Like having a BSc literally does nothing for you. And I feel like that sounds kind of harsh, but it's just the reality of like being a scientist, an active scientist. because the highest you will ever go is literally to be a lab technician. And I feel like not everybody aspires to be a lab technician. So I feel like a PhD in my particular field is quite necessary, whether you want to go back into academia or whether you want to have like a startup of your own. So many people like do the PhD, do a postdoctoral fellowship, and then start off like their own startups from that, or like go into other industries from that. So I feel like in genetics, a PhD is kind of like standard, which is why like everybody does them in my particular field.
Those are some very high standards you guys have in genetics there. Very, very, very high standards. Tebogo, we did have a few questions for you that I just want to get to from Atong. Just gonna find them. So it says, do you feel like the people that work with, whoa, hold on, can't see that part. There we go. Do you feel like the people that work with for you feel like they're fulfilling their purpose at your company? That's a very good question. I like that.
It's I'll be lying if I said I'm the right person to answer that. It would be me front loading with my ego there. But but I'll say this. It's always a learning process, and at this point in of the company, we're about to take like a 90-day sprint to try some ideas. So from the first quarter, we decided, okay, this is what we're going to focus on and all that. But then things never go smooth, especially in an environment where, you know, you can go to work and then hear that you can't, you have to return home before 8 while you are still at work, and maybe you planned after hours sessions and all that. So it hasn't been, I haven't got the best out of the team, and I'll be honest, because I had to, for the first quarter, really be deliberate and look at how everyone was interfacing, looking at how people's motivation levels, looking at what people are passionate about, because that sense of purpose is not my sole responsibility. It's for the team to learn to do things together. And in many ways, I'm trying to get the team to learn to work without me. It is a challenging thing when the company derives from you, because, you know, at a certain level, you realize leadership, in leadership, there will be a difference between influence and control. When you are starting, you are more focused on controlling and enforcing things. But then when you now want to start getting the best out of people, you want influence more than control. You don't want to control people at all. So, and that is what we are iterating into. So ask me after 90 days. I'll give you then like a proper answer, but it's now part of like our journey, really. So it's all work in progress. But I'll say, because now we are seeing the same things, and you know, that I'm open to them shaping the vision. I mean, I had a chat even last week with Paco, and you know, I shared the same sentiments as well. That, you know, that's how I tend to think about work, because in many ways, I don't want to create the same environment that frustrated me for other people.
Yeah.
So that need to be really authentic and self-critical, you know, notice the same biases that, you know, I'll comment about when other people are doing certain things. It's in the same biases in me, in terms of not really being consistent with like the values that we say the company stands for. And speaking about that, you know, when part of what makes it really difficult to get job satisfaction here is because most of our corporates are not purpose driven, they're not mission driven. They have values, mission, vision, that, you know, when you read, you want to work for them. But when you walk into the workplace, something different is happening, and the companies don't hold themselves accountable to what they're promising from their mission and vision statements, and embrace the values that they say are imprinted in their DNA. So it's a challenging thing, because you know you cannot get the best out of everyone unless you do it. But it requires a deep sense of vulnerability to lead that, because you have to lead without your ego.
Mm. 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 Thank you. Thank you. I was in the zone. That was very, very interesting. Thank you very much. She had another question. You spoke about how you don't value formal education. What is the recruitment process like in your organization? I know you spoke a little bit about looking for talent earlier on, but what exactly does that look like?
I want to correct that statement. I value learning. Education can lead to learning. I'm not against the traditional way of learning. It's just that it doesn't engage the human creativity enough. So I can't completely dismiss it, but I just wish it openly recognized some things that, you know, need to be addressed. So for me, like, I tell students, create a portfolio of like what you are doing. As a student, you don't necessarily have to wait. I mean, you can imagine you want to get an internship. If you have a portfolio, let's say you are a software developer of things that you have done. If you are a media student, you have a portfolio of stuff related to what you are studying. Create that portfolio when you are a student. It will help you when you're applying for internships and all that. I do consider minimum requirements. I want to see that someone has done some work in this specific field, but it's not the end goal in itself, because most brilliant people, you know, they are recognized for that brilliance of a system that gives us stars for individual performances, and most of them suck as teammates. So you don't want someone who'd come in and appear like they know it all.
Mm.
It would kill everyone. So you want someone who's also honest enough to know their limitations. It's not even a limitation, you know, from how I look at it. It's just knowing that you still have so much unexplored potential. So you kind of always need to look for something to bring to the surface, work on, get to the next level, apply yourself, look again at where do you have blind spots. So I don't know. I have the luck of just finding my clan. So I don't struggle with finding people. Matter of fact, people find me. And I think it's the consistency of my communication on LinkedIn, on your Facebooks. I didn't do it because there's a sense of some twisted modesty to it, because I would like people to look at what I'm doing and not what I'm saying to value me. But we also have to recognize we live in a culture that is always going to be inspired by stories. So if you are not telling your own story and you are doing things that can have positive impact, how are they going to be visible to others? So they're going to be drowned in the stories of everyone who's just doing things for the short term of it and all that. So that's why I love taking personal responsibility, so that I don't try to say, oh, I'm waiting for so and so to do this. What am I doing to create that linkage myself? So it's growth, I find to be like that in general. In any space, be it individual, within a company, departments, governments, whatever. There has to be that sense of doing things together and learning how to do it well together as well.
Yeah, thank you so very much for your input and answering those questions. We've been here for quite a while, so we'll just close off by doing from all of the panelists, if you will. And if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask before we close, throw them in the chat and we'll have a look at them before we do close. But more of what advice you guys would have for people that are starting out or just graduating, if you're still in uni, people that are still in uni, around being employed as a student, and the need to just grow certain skill sets, because I think a lot of us just think, oh, if I'm in accounting, I just need to be an accountant and it needs to end there. What's the importance of doing a lot more than the status quo, at least what is expected of us at minimal level? Tanola, would you like to go first? Pressure.
I kind of saw that coming. I think I can only encourage people who are, I don't know what audience here on, is it mostly people who are graduating or looking for employment, but for those who are actually planning to go to university or are still in university, I would really encourage the volunteering aspect. I've had a number of conversations with friends here who did not really understand why I was doing what I was doing. People who would always say, nah, volunteering, funny comments like that. But I've learned over the years that I've sharpened or honed skills that I probably never would have at any point. And this is real experience that you're actually going to get, that you need. Nobody was going to teach me anything about virtual team management or any of the things that I was discussing. And you actually get to deal with real issues. You get that practical experience and you get to, most importantly, learn. Because apart from learning the skills that I've had, my experience has also shaped me into becoming the person that I am today, because I was able to see life from a different perspective. I was able to engage with different people from different countries and so on and so forth. So my perspective or my mindset on life has also shifted. So these are the many things that I would actually say one would get from engaging in things like this and actually volunteering. And for some of them may not pay you till the end, and I don't think that should be an issue if you have an extra source of funding or if you can't really find a job. But some of them actually do start paying you at a certain point. Maybe you might know this before, maybe you don't, but I would always advise you to prioritize skills, prioritize learning of skills, as opposed to wanting a quick buck and getting nothing out of it at the end of the day.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for that. That's really good advice. I think a lot of us, instant gratification is a very big thing with our generation. We want things then and now. And if I'm working and I'm not getting paid, it's not making sense. It seems worthless. But there's a lot of value in that. Thank you, Tsenolo. To me, obviously you're on this very, very long journey. And you have a specific goal in mind. How do you stay motivated? Like, I'm a medical student and it's 5 years and already I want to quit, but how do you stay motivated? What keeps you going? And when things are not easy, how do you, I guess, stay focused on your specific goal for yourself?
Okay, so this is gonna sound very problematic again.
The
main thing that keeps me motivated is literally the people that never believed in me. In the sense of I feel like I knew what I wanted to do from a very young age. Like, I always knew that I wanted to end up doing something within the genetic space. So that's the main thing I've always wanted to do. But I feel like growing up, I was basically told that doesn't make sense, because and then what are you gonna do? You're not gonna get a job. whatever. So I feel like I'm driven by the fact that like you need to learn these skills. You need to make yourself a worthy person to like be able to like start up an entire industry that literally doesn't exist in this place. And along the way, keep meeting people, like growing my network such that like eventually when I do like reach the place I want to be, I'm able to also then have like an international network supporting me, kind of like building a little community. So that kind of what keeps me going every other day in this long journey, as you said.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. That's very interesting.
One more thing, actually.
Please.
Can I just say one more? The other question you actually had for Tunnel, I thought was very interesting. But another problematic thing, I feel like I'm the queen of problematicness.
I think we'll do that after this session.
I think it's very important to also get experience doing things that aren't necessarily like related to what you're studying. I feel like people need to understand that like even like just getting like jobs, you don't necessarily have to get a placement or an internship in the actual industry that you're in, or even just a part-time job. It doesn't need to be completely related to what you're doing, because I feel like those little jobs you do that outside of what you learned at uni are what like helps you grow those transferable skills. It helps you understand like how like the social aspect of like working actually works. And I feel like they're very important in just growing as a person and just becoming a better, wholesome individual outside of like your brilliant brain. But that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Tumi. I think that's important too. Bako, if you remember the question that I asked Tenolo.
I do remember it. And I actually wrote a few things down so I wouldn't forget. I think first thing would be, like Tumi was saying, develop your network. Emang earlier was talking about how, you in Botswana, a lot of the time things work and stuff like that. Having somebody who can actually vouch for you to say, yeah, no, this person is brilliant and this and that and that. I've worked for them, or I've worked rather with them, or I've engaged them on such and such a project, and I've noticed that they are really good at this and that and that and that. That is something that can go a very long way. In other sessions that we've had within the series, I think I remember the first one, the HR professional that we had on there was talking about how having like good relations with people that you have worked with before, or having people who can back you up and say, yeah, no, I refer this person, even companies that you might be applying to. That is like that's a big thing that employers actually look for. So develop your network, cultivate it, build new relationships, and nurture the ones that you already have. Number two, I would say invest in your interests and hobbies. This is something that is not necessarily very popular that a lot of people might say, but you are interested in certain things for certain reasons. You are interested in the things that, ignite your passion for different reasons. Earlier, Tabaho was talking about how, he does things from a purpose position as opposed to just doing things just for just. A lot of the time, in order to get to a point where you feel like this is my purpose, this is what I'm meant to do, it lies in those things that you are interested in. It lies in your hobbies. It lies in your interests. So if you develop those things and nurture those things, you get to a point where you are sitting in purpose and you're like, yeah, no, yeah, this is it. This is me, So I would say develop, or rather invest in your interests and hobbies. I'd also say take personal responsibility. Also, like Tabaho had said earlier, take personal responsibility for the problems that annoy you. Because a lot of the time, as some people have said, the things that really bother you the most, you're the person who is supposed to fix those things. If it wasn't something that, was anywhere or that shouldn't have been in your path, then it wouldn't annoy you as much. One thing that might annoy me so much may mean absolutely nothing to the next person. Yeah. So I would say in the things that really annoy you and take you off, look at those things, take personal responsibility, think about what you can do in that space to actually solve the problems that you see, or get involved in, a bigger cause that could contribute to the solution for that thing. Also, that's because, when you are passionate about something that you do, you generally perform better in it. you generally do better, you generally apply yourself more, you generally become more creative, because that is something that there's something that lies innately in you that pushes you to do more for that thing. Number 4, I would say do things that excite you and are aligned with your purpose. Very similar to the other things that I've said. So if you are somebody who has identified what your purpose is, do things that excite you. You don't have to do things just for the sake of doing them, just because it's the right thing to do. How it's a solo, you must look for a job, and the first job that you find, take it. You will be miserable. You'll be miserable. People are unhappy in the jobs that they do. Do things that actually excite you. You know, yes, getting a paycheck is amazing. That's great. But if you do something to get a quick buck, and it's not something, say, can excite you or keep you engaged, you are going to be really miserable. Instant gratification is something, say, our generation, I think, to a large extent struggles with. But I also have seen a segment of that generation pull away from that because they are interested in creating impact, as opposed to being comfortable at the onset. So they would rather delay gratification to get to a point where they're like, yeah, no, this is my life, and I am proud of what I'm doing. I'm proud of the impact that I've had, and I'm on it. This is me, So I think that would generally be my advice. Yeah.
Thank you. Those were bars. Thank you so very much. I saw a couple of people clapping in the audience. And I was also jotting down notes as you were speaking, so thank you very much. Bame, do you have any final words before we close?
Yeah, I think most of the things most of the advice that I would give has already been given, but I just wanted to add 2 things. When you ask the question of what advice do we have, I also thought about letting everyone know how important it is to have those placements or to have those summer internships. But I also want to say that, but to also say we have a lot of pressure in our lives already. And if you are maybe in your 3rd year or in your 4th year of university already, and you might be feeling like everyone here is talking about doing a placement, everyone here is talking about getting those internships. I haven't done them as of yet. Does this mean that I'm going to struggle to get a job? As it is, I think it's important to give that advice, but to also say, just because you haven't gone through the same route that everybody has, doesn't mean that you will not end in a place that you want to end up. And you might be on your 3rd year or on your 4th year, you haven't done those things, but it's never too late to start. And whenever you choose to start, and also it depends on what you actually want to achieve, what you want to do. Maybe you haven't done those internships because you don't have a passion for corporate. Maybe you don't want to be in a corporate world after this. Maybe after this, you already have an idea that you want to implement. So I just wanted to say, in as much as I completely agree, I worked all of my summers when I was studying, from the 1st year until my master's. I interned all throughout because I was told that's what I needed to do, and it did bring an advantage. My CV actually looks way better than it should look. Basically, a lot of people are always surprised by how much I've been able to do, but that's not everyone's career choice. That's not what everybody wants to do. And if that's something you want to do, but you haven't started yet, and you're engaging in this forum in order to learn this, don't beat yourself down because you haven't done this. You are basically doing this in order for you to be able to learn and to be able to do what you need to do to get where you need to go. And then the last thing that I had wanted to say was, I think it's a similar thing in the sense of, earlier when we were talking about Botswana and what it offers, well, basically that doesn't really offer a lot, especially in the technological space. I have learned in my very few years of working that you can get to a point in a company where you have done all that you can. You have reached your maximum potential in that company, and you are not learning anything. And this goes back to staying in jobs only because there's a paycheck. And I guess I'm also answering Ati's question about imposter syndrome. When I started my job before being a lecturer, I was a group accountant and then became the accounting manager. And I genuinely did not know what I was doing every day for a very long time. But I genuinely started an accounting department from nothing in a group of companies. There was three companies that made a group. And when I left because I went to lecturing because there was nothing left for me to do. I had created a system and had hired people and taught them, and they operated fluently without me. And at that point, I was going to work just because, I was getting paid, and it was just, like, I would stay home, and even my boss would not care that I was not coming to work because everything could run. But at that point, there was nothing for me to gain. And as much as it would have been an easy thing to do, it wasn't fulfilling. And I guess that's what other people have been talking about, that don't just do something because it's a paycheck, because it will ultimately make you unhappy. So when you reach your potential, when you feel like you have, sometimes it's not even about feeling like there's nothing for you to do anymore, but there's nothing for you to learn, because we're talking about entering the workspace. So entering the workspace, we haven't all been there for a very long time, or some of us have, but a lot of us are only just entering it. So when you enter into a company and you get your work done, and sometimes you get stuck in a role, and in 2 years you're still in the same role, but you're not learning anything, which goes to what Paco said about, in the UK, she wasn't that challenged in her role. And I think that's what I like about Botswana. You get so much responsibility in most companies, and you have to figure things out. So I guess those are the only things that I have to say.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. I really liked what you started off with about really knowing what you want, because it's very easy to see a lot of your counterparts doing certain things and wanting to, divert your journey in order to, I guess, seem normal or seem like you're doing what you're doing. And when you don't really know what you want, and when you don't know what your purpose is or where your heart is, it's very, very easy to get derailed. We have a question for you quickly.
Yeah.
How would you go about starting as a published writer and integrating that with a very time-consuming career?
Publishing is, I was going to say I answered this earlier, but I realized that publishing and writing are very different things. And publishing is very time-consuming, and it depends if you want to be self-published or you want to publish through an agency. And I'm self-published, but through an agency in the UK. So it's like a mixture of the two. I did most of the work, but then they helped me with getting the book on Amazon and eventually getting it out here in Botswana. Writing and publishing are different things. And it's one of those things where the writing might be fun and creative, but now you have to do the actual work. Somebody has to critique your work and say, you think this is nice, but this might not appeal to an audience. And then you have to, be strong enough to accept the criticism and say, this is somebody who understands a different part of the industry that I don't understand. And so publishing, I think you need to be in a very good state of mind. And it is very time consuming when you are doing it with a full-time career. But honestly, if you love writing as much as I do, even the things that seem annoying are not that annoying. And I think that's it. So if you actually write for the love of it, and it fills your purpose, and purpose is a word that's been said a lot today, and if it fills your purpose, you are going to find it exciting, even when you get many rewrites of your book and you're just like dreading rewriting things, but it's also exciting because you're like, oh my God, I'm getting closer to what actually makes me who I am and what I want to do. So, and I think it actually helps, because sometimes we might feel like our career is something we are doing because we need to do, but then if it's a hobby or if it's a passion of yours, that can actually help you balance out your life to get your work published.
Thank you very much. I hope that answers the question, Fifi. Bame, I know you did say you need to leave soon, so if you do dash out while we're still here, thank you very much for coming, tagging along. You've shared some very insightful information with us. Leo, if you're still here, do you have any advice for us today? Okay, we'll give Leo a minute to think. If you're still here with us, do you have any final words for the congregation?
Yes.
Nice.
For me, the biggest skill, or the one skill everyone needs to pick, and it really doesn't matter in which field, is the ability to learn, because learning also requires unlearning. So there's a bit of what we also need to overcome in how the mental models we use to look at the world. So that's unlearning. It's a part of learning. And then we need to relearn new skills as well. And in a world that is increasingly becoming volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, the skills that are required now won't be the skills that are required going forward, with all the disruption that is coming from tech and all that. Employer skills, required skills as well, are forever evolving. So you can't catch up without having an ability to learn. So I'll say work on that. It's a learnable skill, and eventually you get the hang of it. And it even allows you space to enjoy small little moments, because you don't need to know everything. So yeah, for me, that's the main thing. The other guys have covered other sides of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. There's a book that I'm reading called Deep Work, and it talks about basically being able to learn. And it's challenged me a lot, just about, the ability to learn and the desire to learn and just learn things. Because I think in a lot of our heads, or at least my own head, when I'm challenged with a new task, it's just difficult for me to get into it, because I'm like, it's hard. And when you sit down and you actually do the work, it's so much easier than you always think it is. So I think that's very important. Final words from Leo in the chat about imposter syndrome. Says, imposter syndrome is something I need to unlearn. It's a difficult journey, trying to let go of those feelings of self-doubt, but I take solace in the fact that I've been chosen for this role, and that I've done my degree, and that is enough. It's hard, but it's something I still fight almost a year in. Thank you very much, Leo. Imposter syndrome is real. I had imposter syndrome like even before like the session, because I was like, oh my God, there's like 9 people. I don't know if I can do this. I still have imposter syndrome right now. I'm just like, oh my God, how did this thing go? But it is about overcoming it every day. I think it's something that you have to overcome every single day. Wake up and choose to, fight those inner demons in yourself. I think we've come to the end. Thank you so very much for all our panelists for joining us. It's been amazing. I've personally learned a lot. I do hope everyone else has learned as much as I have. If you don't know about the Runway, we have a website, we have a Facebook page. Please do explore a bit of what else we have to offer. And we hope to have a lot more of these in the future. I think this is the last session of our employability session, which I think has been a huge success. If you followed throughout all of it, like all the sessions, basically, I hope you've learned. It's been jam-packed. I've been learning about CVs. I've been learning about so many things that I never would have gotten the opportunity to learn as a medical student, and things that I know will be beneficial for me in the future, even as a doctor and outside, because obviously that's not all I am. That being said, thank you so very much and enjoy your evenings.